to stay tonight?
What?
Where were you going to
go
stay
back
tonight?
home.
You're going to go back home?
Yeah.
So you were just going to, you came all the way here.
I came up, what happened?
Drop off the
Here we go.
And then you go to
Here we go. And shout out to Joey for the upload. I think he's one of the only people who's uploaded like the part that he could in color, in full and everything. So yeah, now we could actually get like a better look at all the fucking lipping and all the other bullshit that this guy does.
How it started is I was coming up on a bus. And I got up
Just did it right there. Oh my god, we did not have to wait very long.
Coming up on a bus. And I got
Oh, that was just on the inside of his lip. Still, nonetheless, that's a pretty indicative tick that he's pretty fucking nervous.
Up and I found out the number 3 doesn't run any longer. Okay, but I'm already past the 1.
God, and he's making such jerky movements. I mean, he's moving and speaking with great intensity. So it's pretty surprising. I mean, and this is in complete contrast to Chris's cool delivery. Chris is speaking slow. He's thinking about his words, and Jean-Pierre Wehry is just fucking like he's just like sputtering as quick as he can to answer all of Chris's questions.
Okay, and I'm up here, and I'm finding out as I'm walking, I'm looking for a bus stop, and says,
Jeez. This guy's a mess. He's fucking coughing and licking his lips. God, he's probably like slobbering and everything too.
Told that it stopped at 6 o'clock or something like that. I'm already on foot though. Okay, so
wait, what the fuck is
6 o'clock or something like that. Told that it stopped at 6 o'clock or something like that. I'm already on foot though.
So now he's talking about a bus schedule, but he was already on foot. What?
Okay, so I'm told steam something. I don't know. I'm just told that.
What do you mean you just told? What the fuck?
Steam something. I don't know. Okay, so I'm told steam something. I don't know. I'm just told.
You're just told.
Area, okay.
Yeah. So sometimes you're just told. There's no one telling the message. You're just fucking. It's just divine.
And that there's and I had an address. All I did is write down an address. I was told that a young man
You're
Chris
sending
puts his
these
hand up.
emails with your...
I haven't used that account since 1999.
That's bullshit though, because the emails that Chris has in his hand indicated that Jean-Pierre Wehry was showing up tonight to meet Luke. So it's like Chris has damning evidence that clearly states, it's like Chris, I mean, the story that Jean-Pierre Wehry is giving of how he arrived at the house is complete bullshit. The story that Chris has, in which it's like, well, you started exchanging emails, you talked about meeting up, and then look, here you are. That story makes sense because that's the fucking reality. You know, the reality of the situation is the only coherent version of this fucking tale.
Here's the problem with that.
I mean, Jean-Pierre Wehry's story, like, it simply does not make logical sense. Like, there's just no fucking way that you could accommodate all of the nonsense in a coherent narrative.
You were at a public library using a computer.
You know what I was?
Okay, this is very important. This is very important.
Here's the problem with that.
Here's the problem with that.
I know you were at a public library using a computer.
You know what I was, or you know that somebody was using that account?
I know you.
That's
I
good.
was. That's good.
That's good. Oh my god, I didn't know he said that. Hold
Here's
on.
the problem with that.
Okay. This is definitely a power play. So it's a straight up flex on Chris's part, but it's a very effective flex. So Chris has just let this guy talk. Because it's good TV. I think Chris realized early on that this guy was gonna make that he was gonna be fucking epic for his bullshit. So Chris didn't really want to put him on the defensive just yet. Now he's gonna start making these fucking power plays that let JPW know that it's very clear as to why he showed up.
I know you were at a public library using a computer.
You know what I was, or you know that somebody was using that account?
I know you were.
So Jean-Pierre Wehry says, you know that I was, or you know that someone... So Jean-Pierre Wehry is basically saying, well, the fact that the email account that I may have had association with, the fact that that was being used in this exchange doesn't mean that I was the one doing the messaging. And Chris is implying that he like had detectives or police like fucking tail Jean-Pierre Wehry to the library. That's really the only way that they could have known, right? So Chris is probably bullshitting with that. But Jean-Pierre Wehry and people in general, when they're guilty, they will. I mean, your guilt can eclipse your reason. I think that's a rational thing. It's not rational, but I mean, it makes sense that people who are suffering from guilt, who are experiencing guilt more so, they'll act illogically. It's like the intense emotions that you feel sometimes override your reason. So Jean-Pierre Wehry is not going to be thinking reasonably now. He's just like, oh fuck, this guy he's fucking got me.
I was.
See?
That's good.
That's good.
I would do sometimes go in and talk to a friend of mine.
And now he's saying, seriously, he immediately says like, yeah, okay, I do go there. So now, all right. So I wonder how. So did they know? Or they must have traced the fucking IP or something. They probably just knew, like, regarding the digital. That's definitely what happened.
You know that
Can I taste your nuts?
Can I taste
and
your
will
nuts?
you explain to me? That's what porn is.
That's
Lots of artists.
and talk to a friend of mine in a public library.
Chris is just like over his shit. So he's about to say he's just like done. Look at this fucking idiot's fucking pleading eyes.
You know that
Can I taste your nuts? And
That's
will
not
you
my style.
explain to me? That's what porn is.
That's
Lots of
my
artist
style.
sex. How can I promote someone I never had lots of hot sex?
I can fit
How
with
could I
you.
promote someone I never had hot sex with? That's a fucking ridiculous line from this guy.
A couple of people might want to try to get me in trouble. I don't know. That does not.
So you're saying this was somebody else, even though we know you were at the public library using a computer, and
What
we
you
know
know
this
is I was in a public library. That's what you may know.
You don't know everything I know.
Oh my god, and that's so intense.
So you want to tell me
Let's
you
see
don't know
that.
computer.
That does not.
So you're saying this was somebody else, even though.
So exactly, Jean-Pierre Wehry is now. I mean, the only argument that he could have to give merit to his story would be that it's a setup. That someone has hijacked his fucking email account. That he was just there looking for work, and that all of a sudden, he's been ensnared in this sting or whatever. But that's not the case, and Chris makes an explicit move to let him know there's an asymmetrical distribution of power. So Chris has much more information regarding the situation than fucking JPW has no idea what's going on. Like I said, he doesn't even know. He suspects that Chris is law enforcement, but he doesn't have a fucking he doesn't have the certainty that he's talking to law enforcement right now. And look at this, of course, like the one thing I fucking paused it on, his tongue is hanging out of his fucking mouth.
We know you were at the public library using a computer, and
What
we
you know
this
is I was in a public library. That's what you may know.
You don't know everything I know.
See, and then that sound, that tick tick tick, that's Chris like fucking smacking all of the papers just against like the fucking desk or atop of the table. He has like this thick stack of papers. That's the email exchanges between the decoy and JPW, and he's just like smacking it on the fucking table like to let JPW know, like, dude, this is evidence. Like, this is gonna fuck you in court. And once again, it's a flex. I doubt that Chris has this I mean, it's like, how could they have known still? If you think, like, if I were JPW's defense attorney, it's like, even if Jean-Pierre Wehry was at the library, and even if someone at the library was accessing the email, it's like, did anyone see Jean-Pierre Wehry doing it? It still could be, it's like, there could be plausible deniability there. So it's like Jean-Pierre Wehry, and because he's been through the legal system, I think that Jean-Pierre Wehry knows that. So Jean-Pierre Wehry's like, okay, I understand the fucking burden of proof that the state has, and it'd be really difficult to have that. It'd be really difficult to have someone, who was watching him. Of course, I think that he would get fucked either way. Like, I'm not saying that that's a good legal defense. I'm just saying that's a possible legal defense. But yeah, Jean-Pierre Wehry is just thinking damage control. So he's looking for any legal defense. And then Chris just says, you don't know everything that I know. So that immediately is just like, that was Chris like brandishing the information like it was a gun. That was Chris just letting him know that he has that all of the information is enough to just put this guy away.
So you want to tell me the real story?
And he
now?
licks his lips.
Or you want to go with what you got? It's up to you.
And when does the real story get me?
I think this is one of the most important lines in the entire exchange. Fuck that. I think that this is the most important line in the entire exchange. Although it's like grammatically incorrect. Like he says like what? Or let's see.
So you want to tell me the real story now? Or you want to go with what you got? It's up to you.
And when does the real story get me?
When does the real story get me? So so what he means is, and what does the real story get me? So that's just him saying, okay, dude, you know that I did it, and I know that I did it, but why would I admit to it? That's just Jean-Pierre Wehry saying, like, I have nothing to gain from admitting to it. I have only to lose by being caught up, by being a fucking 3-strike felon or whatever. That's just Jean-Pierre Wehry acknowledging that it doesn't make pragmatic sense for him to acknowledge the truth. That's like Jean-Pierre Wehry saying, like, dude, you know I'm in such a bad situation that I can't be truthful right now. He could be truthful, but I think it's like in order like to preserve his own self-interest, he couldn't be truthful. Because being truthful just like it condemns him. As it should.
It's up to you. You can tell me the truth, or you can tell me the story. It's up to you. I can't make
God, and his eyebrows are all fucking furrowed. He has this furrowed brow. His lips. I mean, this guy's just a mess. He's such a physical mess. He must have just been a fucking nightmare. He must have been hella funny to look at, like, to actually see, you know? Instead of this grainy-ass fucking footage.
Do one thing again.
And
your story doesn't make that much sense. Now, maybe I'm skeptical.
Maybe I'm skeptical.
I don't know.
But it doesn't make sense.
I don't know who you are.
I don't even know who you are. I came here. I was just now told.
I'm skeptical. Do one thing again.
And
your story doesn't make that much sense. Now, maybe I'm skeptical.
I don't know.
But it doesn't
I don't know who you are.
I don't know who you
I
are.
don't even know who you are. I came in here. I was just now told.
But see, if you don't know who you're talking to, it's like he's already shown a great amount of respect and deference to Chris, as if he knew who he was talking to. So I think that when he says that, he knows that it's some kind of government office. I mean, or he knows that he's talking to someone who's affiliated with law enforcement in some way. I think that he's aware of that, even though he says, I don't know who you are. So he's just saying, I don't know if you're like a fucking, like a law officer. I don't know if you're a detective or a fucking FBI agent. He just says, I don't know who you are, but I think he knows, like, I know what your job is. I think that's what you said. Like, I don't know in what capacity you're gonna arrest me, but I think that you're affiliated with the people who are gonna arrest me right now.
That gate's open. Come on in.
Okay, look.
I don't even know who you are. I don't even know who you are. I came in here. I was just now told that gate's open.
Who he was not just now told that. That's bullshit.
Come on in. Okay.
And who told you that?
Exactly.
A young man.
A young man.
He's the young man, Michael, or the
I was
Mexican.
told this young man here
Michael, the morphing Mexican.
knows.
That knows what?
This guy that runs this construction company over here.
What this sounds like, Michael, is that you were coming here to have sex with a 13-year-old
Oh,
boy.
hell no. I'm dating. I got her phone number on my
What the fuck?
13-year-old
Oh,
boy.
hell no.
Sounds like, Michael, is that you were coming here to have sex with a 13-year-old
Oh,
boy.
hell no. I'm dating. I got her phone number on my
I'm dating
on my
Letitia.
computer. I'm on my phone. And I'm dating a young black girl.
So why did he say a young black girl? It's very interesting that he says that in particular. So it's like he's been so vague about lies, refusing to give specific details, even at the sake of fucking sense. And then for this lie, he just volunteers, which I'm just guessing that this is a lie. There's no way that he was actually dating a young black girl at this time. So it's like, but why did he say a young black girl? That's just interesting that of all things, it's like, this has to be a lie. There's just no fucking way it's actually true. But why would he say just a young black girl? He could have just said like a young fucking Puerto Rican girl or something. But it's funny.
But why would you say these things to somebody you thought was a 13-year-old?
Maybe somebody else that was also on the computer in the library been using my name.
But see why?
In the library used.
Thought it was a 13-year-old?
Maybe somebody else that was also on the computer in the library been using my name.
Okay, that might make sense if Jean-Pierre Wehry had a coherent story as to why else he showed up. It's like that would explain the allegedly manufactured chat logs. So Jean-Pierre Wehry could point to the stack of papers that Chris is fucking making noise with, and he could say, someone in law enforcement is conspiring amongst themselves to frame me, and you have the evidence of that. But it's like, that only makes sense if Jean-Pierre Wehry could explain how he independently managed to make it to the house, make it to the Sting house. Because Chris is like, dude, how did you get here? And Jean-Pierre Wehry just can't fucking explain it. He's talking about he had a phone call, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, his defense, it's like he's clinging to one aspect of the state's burden that would be difficult to prove. But it's more difficult for him to prove that he was called up by young college. His other story is far more difficult to prove.
So it's one big mix-up.
I'm telling you what I came here for, and I don't have sex with anybody.
With anybody?
Not me. And if you were...
What do you say? With anybody?
So it's one big mix-up.
I'm telling you what I came here for, and I don't have sex with anybody. Not me. And if you were anybody that had access to my record, you look at my record, you figure out that the only time I had any problems with anybody was a young woman, unless you look at my adolescent stuff. And then I was an adolescent.
So you've got a record.
I'm guessing I did.
You're guessing you did.
Yeah, I have a record. You know I have
You
a
had a problem with a young woman.
Look at so
You're
okay. So this is telling as well.
The only time I had any problems with anybody was a young woman, unless you look at my adolescent stuff. And then I was an adolescent.
So you've got a record.
I'm guessing I do.
You're guessing you did.
Yeah, I have a record. You know I have
You
a
had a
record.
problem.
So when he says I have a record, that means that exactly. So he knows that Chris is somehow affiliated with law enforcement. So he knows that he's in a sting.
The young woman.
A long time ago.
The
Give you time
lips,
for that?
fuck,
Don't you know?
and the tongue.
I'm asking you.
Why are you asking?
Why are you asking?
I want to know.
Like, that's the best.
Give you time for that?
You need time for that.
Don't you know?
Don't you? He's pissed
I'm
off
asking
now.
you.
Why are you asking?
Why are you asking?
I want to know the truth.
Yes, I've done time for that.
I want to know.
Straight up, I've done time for that.
You can't say straight up after you've hella been tried to be shady and you've tried to like deny, and you've tried to not even answer, and then to say okay straight up. It's like you lose a lot of credibility when you do that.
He was a young woman. Ain't no kids.
Ain't no kids.
There's nothing in my record to even suggest it.
That doesn't mean that you didn't do it. It's like the fact that it wasn't in your record doesn't mean that it's evidence that you wouldn't do it. It's just that if any, it's just evidence that you never got caught doing it.
I have walked from Pomona up.
See, so once again, so he just wants to say something. Yeah, but
I'd rather you didn't go into that.
he's all doing keep it. And why the fuck would he have milk? That's just disgusting. If he's really been on this journey, it's like milk is. I mean, all milk in California is pasteurized, so it's like you can leave it out for a little bit. It's not gonna get fucked off like bacteria, for like a little bit. But it's like, how long has that milk been in your fucking hot ass backpack just collecting? It's just gross. It's disgusting. I wonder what kind of milk it was. I bet it was 2%. I don't know why. Just because he has a blue shirt. He's all aggressive.
I mean,
It's all good too.
You have walked from.
This is very so. This is he's immediately like reverting back to like when he was a Compton. You could tell from what he's doing.
Let me get my milk on my bag.
Look, he stares at Chris.
I'd rather you didn't go into that. I mean,
So he's looking at Chris. He's not blinking. He's staring at Chris and he's saying, "Let me get my milk out of my bag. That's all I'm gonna do. That's all I'm gonna do."
I'm almost finished asking questions. I'm almost finished asking you questions.
Huh?
What was your plan here?
My plan was because I'm desperate for a job. I have no money, income, none.
I have
That's
no
it.
income, none.
You know what part of my problem has been? Okay, I can tell you where my desperation comes from. Okay, my desperation was for a job. If some
Oh, that's interesting. So it looks like the chats are even like fucking highlighted. Yeah, so it looks like they've highlighted like distinct parts. That's fucking awesome.
somebody else had used an email account that I used a long time ago, I'm sorry about that.
I'm sorry about that.
Then I got to change a number of things. Okay. Then I haven't gone by G. Michael Wilson at Yahoo since 1999. That is the truth. Now I've been in the library. I've taught China with a couple of people.
What does that mean to talk China?
Okay. I've been in the library. I've taught China with a couple of
Talk
people.
China? What the fuck? What kind of funny
That
ass?
is the truth. Now I've been in the library. I've taught China with a couple
Talk
of people.
China. One of the textbooks I had, it was hella funny. It had like an example of like racist language or some bullshit, and it said like he doesn't stand a Chinaman's chance, and I thought that was funny as fuck. And now this guy's talking about I talk China. What does that mean to talk China with someone? Trump talks China, but that's funny because he's actually negotiating with them.
Okay. There are a couple flakes in this world that I know of.
What did he say? Flakes?
There are a couple flakes in this world
Flakes
that I
in
know
this
of.
world.
You're talking to a boy named Luke.
I don't know a boy named Luke.
I'll be there as close.
So there we go. So you can tell just from now observe him as he tells the lie.
Luke.
So immediately furrowing of the brow. So he responds. So he has powerful nonverbals right now. Furrowing of the brow, looking down.
I don't know a boy named Luke.
And then he thrusts his head down. So he starts and then he goes, I don't know, thrusts head down, a boy named Luke. Like for emphasis, he thrusts his head down. Now he starts off furrowing his brow, looking down, and then thrusts his head out, and then immediately makes eye contact. So like he's trying to do a persuasive maneuver. So I think that it's like buried somewhere within JPW, like is a little bit of charisma. He does know, to an extent, how to talk to people, but it's too much of an uphill battle for him to have any fucking hope for this shit.
To a boy named Luke.
Look, man. I mean, look.
I don't know a boy named Luke.
I'll be there as close to 11 as possible.
So
your numbers so that I can
he knows how to give a seemingly sincere and earnest message. He knows how to deliver that.
you when I'm near the bus stop. I will look for you, and we will discreetly go to your room and talk. And we'll talk about whatever pops up and stimulates you. I will look for you,
That's so
and
weird.
we will discreetly go to your room and talk. And we'll talk about whatever pops up and stimulates you into what's...
Who talks like that to anyone? This guy's fucking retarded. I don't even understand. It's so ridiculous that this guy thinks that this is that this would be an effective move, you know?
Whatever you want.
This guy's a fucking
reading me
idiot.
something that somebody wrote. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So I need exact bus stop near our place as I get off.
I fucking hate this sweaty bastard. Just looking at him, I mean, this guy's a fucking joke. I despise this guy. You know, he's really... He's, I think, one of my most despised predators. Just for the aggressiveness, for the audacity. I'm just gonna...
I'll walk toward your street, so you also
I'll save that for the...
to your bed from there.
Well, I don't know about what everybody that this person has said to a 13. I never even met a 13-year-old. I'm not going to talk to somebody I never met before.
That's what it looks like you did.
I never met this person.
Many people talk to people they haven't met
I
before.
don't know about what everybody that this person has said to a 13. I never even met a 13-year-old.
You never met a 13-year-old in your life, like ever? Like the world is populated. The world is just a large place with all kinds of people. It's like there's no way you could live in society in America and like never have exposure to anyone who's 13. This guy's an idiot. So that's just him. That's him like being so exaggerated in his defenses that he's not even making sense. You know, it's like he's going like, not only have I not talked to this 13-year-old, I've never talked to anything. It's like he's going out of his way to try and make it clear that he's not guilty, even though he is.
I'm not going to talk to somebody I never met before.
Very common to talk to people you don't met.
I never met this person. Who's Luke? I never met no Luke.
Who's Luke?
What's in it?
I never met this person. Who's Luke? I never met no Luke.
I never met no Luke. Ain't no Luke in me.
I've never talked to anybody that I know of by the name of Luke.
Once again, so that's also probably bullshit too. It's like, dude, Jean-Pierre Wehry is probably like fucking 40 years old. He's probably in his 40s. How could you go your whole life without... Is that really what he just said?
I've never talked to anybody that I know of by the name of Luke.
By the name of Luke? You've never met someone named Luke? Is that what you're saying? That's so ridiculous. Like, I mean, well, given our context, that's ridiculous. It's like Jean-Pierre Wehry is in California. In California, Luke is it's not a common name, and it's kind of an older name, but definitely an older guy like this would have met someone named Luke. Like, it's preposterous to imagine that he would go his whole life without ever meeting someone named Luke. The name is kind of common.
Man,
I think it's a biblical name. I think it's a fucking biblical name, and because it's a biblical name, it's like it makes it even more common than if it were not.
I never asked a young man his name.
Well,
I never asked a young man the name.
the reason why I'm so curious about all of this is that I'm Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC. And we've been doing a story on computer predators, adults who go
Computer
online with
predators.
young teenagers. Now, if you have anything else you'd like to say for yourself, we'd love to hear it. If not, you're obviously free to leave and go on.
God, this fat ass.
I'm not doing anything.
I'm not doing anything.
Now, if there's not, it's Scott Pedersen.
Scott Pedersen. So now he's king.
And
So John Pedersen has become Scott Pedersen, and of course I think that, and I mean I think that I've seen this somewhere else, probably on the Temple TCAP forum, that he said Scott Pedersen because of the Scott Peterson murder. I'm not sure if this aligns with the timeline. I don't remember specifically when that occurred, but yeah. So it's like over this fucking talk with Chris, John Pedersen has like morphed into Scott Pedersen. So it sucks that Chris wasn't able to be like Scott, just to call him out on it, but.
Scott Pedersen's name written down?
no, I have an address.
Yeah, Chris bought it. I think there was just a lot going on. It's like we've had time to like process this, but I think in the moment it'd be really hard to like catch all the moving pieces, especially for this guy.
That's all I was planning to do. Just go to Scott Pedersen. I can leave my phone.
Scott Pedersen.
My address.
So he
So you
repeats
never
it. So now it's like Scott Pedersen for sure. So it's like it begun as John Pedersen. They were both repeating it. And now Jean-Pierre Wehry said, oh, well, if Scott Pedersen's not here, and Chris is like, do you have Scott Pedersen written down? So it's like now going forward, Scott Pedersen would be the individual mentioned. There would be no talk of John Pedersen unless they rewatched the fucking footage.
Down Scott Pedersen's name.
No, I didn't write anybody else's name either. I'm gonna have to change some things, but no, I have never, ever.
Never, ever. See, these guys and these fucking predators and their hyperbolic declarations of innocence that always make them look like far more fucking deceitful than they probably really are. And this guy's eyes are fucking bugging out of his skull.
I'm gonna have to change some things, but no, I have never, ever.
Never, ever. Never. Ever.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No.
No. That's so funny. There was a hella funny. I forget who it is. Was it Crestfallen or someone or Bashir, Dr. Bashir, who had the fucking They put the Jurassic Park song, the bum 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 right here. You should check that video out if you haven't seen it. It's funny. Yeah, he does look like Dr. Grant from Jurassic Park, though. He's gonna go make sure that there are no velociraptors in the driveway.
So you never wrote down Scott Pedersen's name?
Oh, there's more. That's awesome.
No.
Just another one of the hat.
He maintained until the very end of the interview that he was just a dusty, determined traveler who came from a long ways away.
This is good.
To try to get honest work.
The young man I thought was supposed to be here.
What's that person's name?
What's that person's name?
Scott was supposed to be here, and he didn't mention his name. I just said, look, it's Scott.
Who's Scott?
Who's
The guy I
Scott?
was supposed
That
to-
fucking detective's like,
He didn't mention his
that
name.
detective is so fucking annoyed that he has to write the. He's like, really, dude? You're gonna, or maybe he likes it. If I were a detective, I would like it. I think that would be cool. It's like, I think that it would be really cool to be able to fucking get these guys and to put them away in jail. But no, it's like, you could tell that they're fucking annoyed that they even have to deal with his ass right now.
I said, look, it's Scott.
Who's Scott?
Who's
The guy
Scott?
I was supposed
That
to
guy's
be-
so annoyed.
I was told
You work construction?
I was looking for any kind of job.
You don't work right now?
No.
Jean-Pierre Wehry pleaded not guilty. So yeah, Jean-Pierre Wehry is he's one of my most hated predators, I think, because not only does he go so far to fucking lie. I mean, the audacity that this guy has in his lies is kind of crazy. But I think that it's this guy has this like darkness in him. I mean, he has a past that I haven't looked into, but it's like whatever he did with the young woman, like whatever stalking or domestic, whatever it was probably pretty fucked up. So it's like this guy has done bad shit in the world. So I hope that Jean-Pierre Wehry is still in jail. I hope that this guy really had a fucking shitty life as a product of all the fucking all the misery that he brought onto others.